When I was running 3 businesses all at once in 2023, I had a creative agency, an e-com store, and a SaaS company with guitar courses. I got to one point where I was completely lost. I had zero clarity. I didn't know what to focus on. I was overwhelmed, burned out, you name it. And then I had this mental breakdown that literally made me finally make a decision to stop chasing money and start creating content. And that's how I started my personal brand at the end of 2023. It took me 4 months to kind of get some traction. And then 12 months later, we're past 200,000 followers across all platforms. And I've been working with hundreds of clients, helping hundreds of people grow and scale their personal brands. And life has been amazing. But in this video, I really want to give you guys some secrets to content creation, to creating a personal brand that I wish I knew earlier. And I guarantee you, no matter where you are in your journey, if you're a business owner creating content, if you're feeling stuck with all of this like filming, recording, working on ideas, getting your message across, I promise what I'm gonna have in this video will really make an impact. And that is my goal with all of this. So let's get into it. I have some notes in here that I wanna cover. So the first thing that I kind of I wish I knew, I kind of had it in my mind, but I didn't master at the time, was this idea of like setting the intention. So if you're thinking about creating content, or if you're already creating content, you need to go back to the drawing board and really ask yourself, why am I creating content in the first place? What is the purpose of all of this? See, I see a lot of people that, especially entrepreneurs and founders that do have a lot of expertise, they go into creating content with this just idea of like, I want to get views. I want to get popular. And trust me, I was there as well for a couple of months. I was obsessed with views, obsessed with like the fame. But what I really realized internally, even at the time, was that I really have to go back and tune in with what's in my heart. What is my desire with all of this? Because the reason why I started creating content in the first place was I wanted to take my expertise from the business world and bring that across and help others so that they don't have to go through the chaos that I went through. And that was my entire why. Now, in this social media chaotic space, you can lose yourself. You can lose yourself in the numbers and the vanity metrics, and you might think that that is the one thing that you got to chase. It's like the views, the fame. But what you really have to do is chase the impact. So let's start there. If right now you're kind of lost with content, you don't know what exactly to post, you want a secret code, right? You want like a shortcut. It all starts with you checking in with yourself and setting the intention. And I hope that your intention, no matter the niche you're in, is to help others. Because if that is the intention, everything else will fall into place. The next thing that I want to talk about is that your value as an entrepreneur, as a content creator, as a business owner, your value is not in the views. It's just not. All of this outside stuff, the likes, the views, going viral, even making money with content, with a personal brand, with an offer, all of this does not define your inner value. And I'm just gonna provide some context here. Last year in April, so during this time, last year, everything for me was about the external validation. I was just chasing the validation of others. And therefore, I ended up into this spiral of actively trying to go viral. And I was putting the focus, again, on the wrong thing. I was putting the focus on the views, on vanity metrics, on fame, rather than putting the focus on impact. And it took me a while, actually, to realize that my value is not defined by some numbers. My value is not defined by how many videos I had that went viral. And I had a couple on Instagram, but I also noticed that within me, like that didn't, that spikes up your dopamine for a couple of days, but that doesn't really define you, truly. So what can define you if that won't? I would say right now is really like what's in your heart. What's in your heart and what is your expertise so far? There are a lot of people who go into content with the sole purpose of getting views, with the sole purpose of getting famous. But we're going back to the first point. If inside your heart, your intention is to truly make an impact, is to give more than you take, that will define your value. If you, on the other side, if you like attach your value to outside stuff that you cannot really control, what's going to end up happening is, and it happened to me, is you're going to go viral, you're going to get some views here and there, and then some other videos are not going to perform as well. It happens to everyone. And when that happens, you will feel like crap within. You will feel like I'm not worth it. Why am I even doing this in the first place? And you will start to go on this spiral of self-sabotaging. And that's what I did as well. And again, I had to go through so many different hoops to get to this point of realizing that the only thing that matters with this is making an impact. The only thing that matters with content is that you actually solve other people's problems. And you don't put your value in some metrics that are outside of your control. And I used to obsess over this. I used to obsess over, if I don't get views, I don't know, I would put like a number. If I don't get 1 million views on this video, what am I doing? But that is the wrong mindset. So when you're going in, creating content, and I'm going to get to the next point, which is like this really changed my entire outlook on this. When you're going into the next video, filming, think to yourself, what could I say? What could I do that will really, really help even just one person? And if I help one person with this video, I win. It's not about the numbers. It's not. So stop, if you approach content, if you approach building a personal brand, building a business with this mindset of, I want to get something out of it quickly. Like I want some numbers, I want some money, I want some fame. You will go down that spiral. And let's say you do get it when things kind of when you have a really good month and then a bad month, your mind is going to go crazy. Trust me, I've been there. For example, with my e-com store, I got to one point where it was doing really good. I was scaling to 6 figures. And then I remember I had this amazing month, I think in last year. So yeah, it was 2024 in February. I had an amazing month. And then March was just awful. And you have a spike and then you have a lower month. And that again, it played with my mind so much. And at the time, I was just attaching my value to money, to numbers, things that I really cannot control fully. And so I'm going to get into the next point, but what I really want to tell you is that with content, when it comes to life in general, you really need to focus on the input. So what do I bring to the table? What is inside my heart? What is my intention? What is my why? And not focusing on the external stuff, right? Cool. So the next thing, you got to obsess over other people's problems. I'm going to say that again. The next video you make, keep this in mind. You have to obsess over other people's problems, not your own. So don't approach this with the mindset of, how am I going to fix my problems? How am I going to sell a course, sell coaching? How am I going to sell a product to quickly fix my problems? Approach this from a standpoint of I'm really serving this niche what are their problems? Let me obsess over them. And when you make that mindset shift, it will show, first of all, it will show in your whole demeanor because you're not worried about yourself. So I'm not pressing record here, worrying about, oh, I have to look good on camera. I have to get some validation from others. I'm really worried, quote unquote, about how can I best deliver the value to you? How can I actually make an impact? And I literally told myself before the video, like, no matter what you say, make sure you put your best foot forward and make sure you try to bring all of the lessons that you learned and literally say the best things that you can right now in this moment so that you can help someone. And that's what I'm actively trying to do right now as I'm talking to you. So if you obsess over other people's problems, it will show in your content and it will actually show in the numbers that you make, in the money that you make. It will show in your offer. It will show in your value delivery. It will show in everything. The thing is, a lot of business owners, a lot of entrepreneurs, they approached this entire game with the mindset of how can I make more? How can I make more? How can I fix my own problems? How can I, make use of some strategies and stuff to bring people in so that they give me money so that I can fix my problems? They don't go into it with the sole purpose of serving others. So if we're talking about content creation, I'm not talking about, first of all, I'm not talking about dancing in front of the camera for TikTok. No. I'm talking about actually creating and communicating value. So if you're doing that currently, let's say you're a founder and you have some experience in I don't know, in law, and right now you want to help others and you got a YouTube channel, you have to obsess over what are people dealing with and what could I really bring to the table with my content. Because all of the strategies, all of the hooks, you got so many people right now that are telling you, use this hook, use this format, use this thumbnail, and trust me guys, I fell into that trap. Last year, I think during this time, April, March, or March, April rather, I was so obsessed with this thing with perfect hooks, perfect captions on Instagram, perfect thumbnails on YouTube, perfect descriptions, perfect script. But I realized it's not about that. It is not about that. It is about how do I genuinely communicate the value that I bring, that I have. How can I make an impact? And obsessing over your own problems and being in that state is essentially a scarcity mindset that will keep you stuck. And again, I've been there. Everything that I'm gonna say, everything that I've said so far, guys, I'm saying because I went through it. So I made every mistake in the book for the past 3-4 years in business. I still have a lot more to learn. So I'm not saying all of this from a position of a guru. But I've really understood that if I approach business, if I approach content from a selfish point, that will really, really keep me stuck. It will not only not give me the results that I want, but it won't make a true impact because there's no possible way that you can serve your people, your niche, when you bring in this selfish energy. If you try to serve yourself, how are you going to be able to serve others? So again, obsess over their problems, not your own. Try and do more research. Try and talk to more people. Try and DM more people. Hey, how are you doing? What are you struggling with? What are your pain points? How can I help? And you will see, if you genuinely put that in your content from now, it doesn't matter what funnel you use. It doesn't matter what strategy, what lead magnet, whatever. If you genuinely put that forward, the right people will connect with you, will come to you, and they will actually work with you. That's what I've learned. And it's a confirmation that I have right now with the consulting that I'm doing with my clients. I've stopped all of this madness with, hey, lead magnets, complicated funnels. I stopped all of that. And how I'm approaching the game right now is exactly that. I'm obsessed with the problems that you might have. And I'm genuinely like, how can I make an impact with this? Now I'm not, this noble angel that is not concerned with money. No, money is important. We're talking about business here. But it needs to come from like this, you have to have this, serving attitude, like this humble, like I'm really trying to serve people. Because a true leader serves others. A true leader does not use people for his benefit. Because you'll see in the middle of all of this chaos online, if you stop worrying about what others are doing, and if you start obsessing over how can I help people within my niche and truly make an impact and truly make their life even 1% better, you will see how the entire game will shift in your favor. So that's that with the obsession. And the last point that I have in this video, and that I want to make, and I think I could talk about this for like hours, but let's end it with this. You have to understand that within the content space, the messenger, which is you, the messenger matters way more than the message. I'm going to say that again. The messenger matters way more than the message. Now, what do I mean by that? A lot of people are obsessed with YouTube title ideas, hooks, scripts, again, the perfect techniques, whatever. They're obsessed with that. They're obsessed with copywriting. They're obsessed with that. But they forget that, especially when we're talking about a personal brand, creating content around who you are for serving other people, it all starts with you. So unless you actually do the inner work to build yourself up into becoming the person that can do the things that you want to do and that can serve your niche, nothing is going to work. So a lot of people want to just dodge that, want to just leave that out of the equation, but it doesn't work. The messenger matters way more than the message. So if you obsess over the landing page, if you obsess over your offer, if you obsess over the content formats and the styles and whatever, but you deep down, you approach all of this content creation from a really messy point, if you're a mess, you can only go so far. So in other words, you have to really work on yourself. You have to really get clear with what you have in your heart, in your mind, what is your desire, what is your why. You have to really develop yourself. You have to become that person that can create the content that will truly serve others. And I have so many, I'm most likely gonna make so many YouTube videos with this. But this is a biblical concept that we can find in Genesis 1 verse 28, if I'm not mistaken. Let me actually check that right now, because I don't want to say anything that is not true. So let me go Genesis. Okay, so yeah, I was right. So Genesis 1 verse 28. So this is right after we get this. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female, he created them. Verse 28 says, God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it. This is from the New International Version of the Bible. On the channel, you guys will hear me speak on biblical concepts and verses a lot, because I want to relate every single business concept to the Bible, because it's literally the cheat code. So I'm gonna say that again. So in the verse it says, God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it. So we literally get this cheat code this formula for success in the Bible. So God tells us, be fruitful. So what does that mean? First, he doesn't say, go do this. He says, be fruitful and increase in number. And in the King James, it says, be fruitful and multiply. So in other words, we first need to be fruitful. We have to become that version that can really multiply. What does that mean? It basically means that you right now, no matter what your situation is, if you're creating content, you clearly have a seed planted to make an impact and to help others. But you cannot go and multiply that gift, that seed. Hopefully you're with me. You cannot go and do that unless you're fruitful in the first place. Does that make sense? So stop focusing on, I have to work on this offer, I have to work on this strategy, and really try and tune in with who you are right now. And when you become fruitful, when you become that version that can pull it off, everything will show in your attitude, everything will show in your content, in the messaging as well. And if we bring this all the way back to coaching, online coaching, for example, I've said this times and times again, people don't buy coaching, they buy coaches. So stop worrying so much about the strategies, about the message, and start worrying about, not worrying, but start focusing on building the messenger up, becoming a better messenger. So if you can communicate the value in a more efficient way, in a better way, if you can really truly help others, the message itself, I'm not saying it's not going to matter, but it's going to matter less. And again, the obsession needs to be with others. The obsession needs to be with, how do I help people? Now I know, you might have clicked on this video expecting really a really quick hack for content, expecting a formula to get you to go viral. But the formula is what I literally just said. It's in the Bible. So it's about you becoming that version that can actually create all of this. If you go into it, and I promise, I've seen it time and time again, and I was kind of there myself in 2023. If you go into creating content with the sole purpose of getting some attention, getting some likes, some clicks, and some quick cash, you can only go so far. If you go into it with the right intention of making an impact, of helping others, of really making a difference. I know it sounds corny, I know it sounds generic, but if you want a cheat code to success with content creation, if you want the secret, that is it. It's the obsession with the problems that people deal with, because that will enable you to tackle those pain points through your videos, through your content, and not only potentially blow up, because even if you don't blow up, it does not matter. But what it will really allow you to do is to create something that makes an impact and something that you are aligned with. So you don't have to force anything. Because when you make it your job, your purpose to serve others, everything else falls into place.